My name is Lily Meyer, and I don't have a title.
Okay, no problem. So, do you mind just explaining a little bit about your book?
Yeah.
What inspired you to write it? Of course, you did explain it during the
Yeah.
presentation, but if you want to...
Sure. So my book is called Arthur and Lily, and Arthur is a Holocaust survivor, and Lily is me. And so I first met him when I was 11 years old, because we both grew up in the same apartment in Vienna and Austria, 60 years apart. So he spent his childhood there in the 1930s and I in the 1990s. And I met him when I was 11 because he wanted to see this apartment again. And I mean, that it set off a whole chain of events that led me to becoming a Holocaust historian and to writing this book about him.
Right, and so your relation to the Holocaust is just through Arthur and his story?
It is, yeah. I mean, it was like my first time meeting a Jewish person, my first time hearing about the Holocaust, and I mean, over the time I've met many more Holocaust survivors, but it influenced me in what I studied and how I became a historian, and so it really was my first introduction to all of this, yeah.
Okay, and then so as you were here just talking to the students, why do you believe it's important to let them know about the Holocaust?
Yeah, I think it's always important to teach about the Holocaust, but I think now more than ever, on the one hand, because what's going on politically in the world, but also because there's not a lot of Holocaust survivors anymore. And for a long time, they used to go to schools and share their stories, and it really had an impact on students. And I'm just like trying, I mean, it's not the same if they hear it from me, but it's still different than regular history class. Me telling Arthur's story and talking about how my life was changed by it. So I go to a lot of schools, like both in Germany and here in America, and I really hope to reach students this way.
Okay. And then when you say how your life was changed by it, do you mind just explaining a little bit about that?
Sure, I mean, do you want me to tell the whole story with the package or just how my...
I guess just
yeah.
like a brief
Sure.
down of it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, like, it started with, like I said, Arthur and me growing up in the same apartment, and I met him. And then through a very weird chain of coincidences, like me taking part in a history project, and then there was a newspaper article about it, and a woman recognized the photo and the name of Arthur's mother, and I was holding like this photo of her, and she recognized it, and she had been holding on to a package by Arthur's parents for over 60 years. It was incredibly emotional for him to get this package back, and then because of this, our friendship became so much more important. He came to visit Austria many more times, I came to America, and he quite soon started introducing me as his Austrian granddaughter. Like, it really feels like, I mean, I spent more time with his family than with my own family sometimes when I live in the States here. And I became a Holocaust historian. So both professionally and like emotionally and family-wise, it had a huge impact on my life.
And then I guess I wanted to tie back into the students as well.
Sure.
With you being a historian for the Holocaust as well.
Yeah.
What impact do you believe this has on them?
Yeah. So I do hope that it has an impact on the students when I speak to them. I mean, I remember from my time going to school that when you met a Holocaust survivor, it really was like the one visit that stood out from like you learn history and then you meet an actual person. And I do hope that it somehow translates, at least me telling about all these survivors I met, and I think it gets more personal. And so I do hope that it has an impact on the students. Like, a lot of them bought the book right after, so they seemed very interested and they had great questions. And I'm excited that I get to come to places like East Texas, and not only like the big states, yeah.
Right. And then just one more question about your book.
Sure.
So I know you mentioned in your presentation that one of Arthur's wishes was for you to translate it to English.
Yeah.
Do you mind just explaining?
Sure. So the book came out 5 years ago in German. I mean, funnily enough, I started writing it in English when I went to NYU, but then I moved back to Germany and found a German publisher. So it came out 5 years ago in German, and Arthur really on his deathbed had me promise to translate it to English because his family doesn't speak English. Arthur on his deathbed had me promise to translate it to English because his family doesn't speak German. So none of them knew what I was writing about him, and I know so much more about his history than they do because I researched it. And so now it means a lot to me to fulfill this promise, and that the book is out in English, and it's also called Arthur and Lily, the Girl and the Holocaust Survivor, and it tells the story of all we have been talking about.
And is there anything else you'd like to add, whether that's regarding your book or just presenting to the students today?
What I might say is, with everything that's been going on in the world, it is actually a very positive story, because Arthur was just the happiest man ever. And I also talk in the book how he became this happy man and how he overcame his hate, and he really made a conscious decision to become happy. And I think that's a message that we can take a lot away with in these times especially. And so it is a book about the Holocaust, but it's actually an uplifting, hopeful book.